Welcome back. Joining me live now is One Nation Senator Pauline Hanson. Senator, thank you for your time today. Now, this week, One Nation planned to slash up to $90 billion from government spending. You're taking this initiative to the federal election in order to put back $40 billion, which is almost half, back into Australia's pockets to generate a long-term economic growth. Now, can you explain why you've chosen to put forward this plan?
It concerns me greatly the way the country is going. By putting this plan forward, we're fighting for Australia's future, we're slashing government spending, we're actually making a bold move that the other major political parties won't do. It's about putting money back into the pockets of the Australian people. So I suppose what I need to tell you is that, I travel around the country, people are struggling with the cost of living. I've got people living in their cars, they can't have the health care, what they need. The waste of money that's happening from the government is unacceptable any longer. So these policies, I hope to actually implement them, working with the government of the day, if we have the balance of power, especially in the Senate.
Now, Senator, by slashing government spending by almost half the amount, where are you proposing the money be redirected, and what changes are you wanting to bring to the Australian people?
I suppose the biggest challenge is I want people to think about this because a lot of fear-mongering has gone on with climate change. And I'll warn people, you're more likely to die of not having the hospital care and attention, the medication that you require, dealing with, operations or treating your cancer, than what you ever will from climate change, and believing that this climate or this planet is coming to an end, especially when our emissions are 1% and the global world is, and especially China, is emitting about 60%. We are destroying our country with productivity. So climate change, the department I want gone, get out of the Paris Agreement. That would save about $30 billion. Over the next few years till 2030, the government plans on spending $65 billion in putting new transmission lines and rewiring the country. Another area is the Aboriginal industry, which I've always called for, treat everyone equally on an individual needs basis. Apart from funding that goes on for every Australian and Aboriginals, there's an extra $12.5 billion that's given to I call the Aboriginal industry, and then on top of that, another $11 billion from other government departments in grants just for Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders. You've got the NDIS that's completely out of control. For 660,000 people, you're looking at near $50 billion, and the rest of the Australians, 27 million, $30 billion in Medicare. It's out of control.
You strongly believe that without substantial spending and tax reform, Australia's living standards would continue to go backwards, as we're experiencing the longest per capita recession in Australian history. So therefore, what do you believe will happen if Australians don't adopt this plan?
We're losing the resources that we need, and I explained about the health is for one. We're 650,000 homes short, and I blame the government for bringing a mass migration, which will release our immigration policy next week. So mass migration. Inflation is still on the rise because of government spending. Too much money has gone into the economy. This government has spent over $300 billion. That's added to our bottom line, and at the moment, our debt, we are paying $36 billion a year in interest. Next year, expected to be $50 billion, what we could do with that money. So we've got to pay down our debt, rein in government spending. And I think it's important people need to really think seriously about this, because the future generations will not have the standard of living and quality of life that we or previous generations have had.
Now, you mentioned this earlier, One Nation will also look to abolish race-based federal spending, saving taxpayers up to $12.5 billion every year. You believe that for too long, bureaucrats, activists and even consultants have pocketed taxpayer-funded dollars while failing to deliver real results, calling the system pretty much corrupt. So could you give us some details on what you mean by this?
Well, the NDIS is not run properly. People are putting in, or they're given their monies, and it's not overseen by actually receipts. We know that it is being corrupted by people, organisations that are actually taken out of the tune of billions of dollars a year out of the NDIS. It's a scam that's going on. Medicare, I think, is another scam as well, whereas we don't show ID when we go to the doctor. So a lot of people coming in from overseas is borrowing their friends' or family's Medicare card and going to the doctor and getting PBS prescriptions. TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Organisation, needs to be rolled into the health department. That is basically funded by the pharmaceutical companies and government, mainly the pharmaceutical companies. We need to examine these drugs and the high cost we are paying on the PBS scheme, and some of them are over $1,000 for a packet of these drugs, where we could actually give it by a generic brand that's not patent anymore. So there are a lot of areas, climate change and the scam that's been on hydrogen, that Chris Bowen keeps pushing about hydrogen, which is pie in the sky dream. We cannot have hydrogen. It costs more in electricity to produce hydrogen and the storage of it. So all these things is complete waste of money, and that's what I want to rein it in. The educational department, it's duplication. That needs to be given back to the states to run the education, because I'll ask people, our kids are behind their counterparts in maths and science in year 15 roles than Singapore and China. We're going backwards in education. It's terrible. So a lot of things need to be completely overhauled, what is happening in Australia, and that's due to our governments and our politicians.
Senator Pauline Hanson, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time.